2016, the civil war in Syria reached its tipping point in the Battle for Aleppo. The city was divided between the eastern half, controlled by rebel groups, and the western half, controlled by longtime Syrian dictator Bashar al-Assad. Assad has been sharply condemned by the international community for a long list of atrocities, including using chemical weapons on his own people. Now, despite this international condemnation, his forces retook the city with the help of the Russian military and, along the way, earned the tacit approval of the incoming American president.
If Putin wants to go and knock the hell out of ISIS, I am all for it, 100%. And I'm looking at Assad and saying, maybe he's better than the kind of people that we're supposed to be backing.
Isabel Young went to government-controlled Aleppo just before the city fell to see what an Assad victory will look like going forward.
Just got to the city of Aleppo, which has had several hundred mortars falling over the last couple of days. The government has tried to take a major supply road of the rebels, and the rebels have retaliated by sending hundreds of mortars. So no neighborhood is very safe. The whole of Aleppo is essentially a front line. You can see the remains of gas canisters, which are responsible for blowing up this area. Oh, careful. Every corner there's these tarps which are put up to try and block snipers' views because the opposition are literally just down there. We're hearing several mortars very close to this area. Wait.
Now this is a sniper. Stop shooting here.
There's a sniper down there.
You should run.
Go, go, go. Sniper corners all around Aleppo. Fucking hell. Whoa, there's still some people living up there. A bunch of IDPs who have nowhere else to go are living in these buildings, even though there's snipers on every corner. So they're trying to tap into these temporary generators that are put up. This web of wires is insane. It's just kids wandering around here. We were initially told that these civilian areas were safe, but it quickly became evident that even government-controlled Aleppo was not secure. This is one of the houses that's been hit by what the locals here call Hell 2, which I think is, you can see the remnants of that in here, which is basically just gas which is held inside these glass jars or canisters and just blasts the walls and really obliterates the place. This place gives me the freaks. It's so scary. I really don't know how people can still, like, there's literally someone still living next door. Hello. Salam. Salam. Isabel. I feel a bit silly being sat here in my flak jacket, my body armor, and you guys just chilling like it's a normal day. I can hear explosions going off every few seconds. Are you guys scared?
بأي لحظة ممكن تنزل قذيفة، ما بنعرف وين. فشلون بدنا نهرب منها يعني؟
كله هذا بخطر يعني ما في إنسان خالي هون من الأمر، ما حدا بيعرف. ماشي راح.
For nearly 6 years, this has been the reality for Syrian civilians. When the Arab Spring reached Aleppo in 2012, Assad's response was a brutal crackdown followed by a siege of rebel-dominated parts of the city, cutting food and essential supplies. Then came massive shelling and indiscriminate bombings. But while we were there, the government was keen to show us that their side was also taking casualties.
We are receiving almost 100 cases from
100 cases a day?
Daily.
How are the sanctions impacting your work here?
الحظر على سوريا أدى إلى صعوبات كبيرة في استخدام الأجهزة الموجودة عندنا بسبب عدم توفر الأدوات اللي ممكن نصلح فيها الآلات الموجودة عندنا.
Do you ever get scared?
Never and ever I will not, because you are believing in God.
Does that happen a lot? The
No,
electricity
no
just goes-
problem. About 15 seconds will coming.
Okay.
Don't worry.
Must be-
15 seconds. Don't worry.
This is definitely not easy conditions to work under. But civilians living here have little option but to endure the suffering. Salam. What happened to your baby?
شظايا وعي شظايا قذايف شظايا ضربوا له راسه صار معه تفتت بالجمجمة.
Why are you still in Aleppo? Why haven't you left?
وين بدنا نروح؟ وين بدنا نروح؟ هاي بلدنا ونحن عايشين فيها.
But while the civilians in Assad's Aleppo felt trapped, those in rebel-held territory were in an utterly hopeless situation as Assad made his final push for an Aleppo takeover, leading desperate civilians to flood social media with their cries for help.
To everyone who can hear me, we are here exposed to a genocide in the besieged city of Aleppo. More than 50,000 of civilians who rebelled against the dictator al-Assad are threatened with field executions or dying under bombing.
الشيء اللي عم يصير بحلب هو كارثي بكل ما تعنيه الكلمة من معنى. الشيء اللي عم يصير أكبر من إنه يتخيلوا عقل.
I can't describe because what we have seen the last 2 days is indescribable.
But their pleas for help went unanswered. Assad's forces took control of Aleppo's last strongholds, and those who survived were bussed away from their homes. This was a defining moment for Assad, representing a major step towards regaining complete control. To see what life is like for those living under the dictator's tightening grip, we traveled to the capital of Syria, Damascus. Neighborhood of Damascus, and to be honest, it feels like we could be in so many different parts of the world right now, but definitely not Syria. Oh, they've just brought a poster of Assad to put on the front of the wedding vehicle. In government-controlled Damascus, residents are inundated with pro-regime propaganda, glorifying the image of Syria's longtime dictator. Day and night, people are bombarded with this message. But for these guys, blasting propaganda isn't just a hobby. Does the government support you to do this?
ايه معلوم بيعطوني حق البنزينات وبيعطوني معاش شهري.
And what kind of response do you get from people you're passing?
هذا العالم قدامكم فيكم تسألوا. نحن ما هممنا إلا نرجع الأمان لبلدنا. نحن ملوك الحرية. نحن أهل الحرية.
In the West, President Assad isn't very popular. He's got a reputation for being responsible for hundreds of thousands of people's deaths and for millions of people fleeing the country. What do you think of that?
هلا بدي أقول لك شغلة. شو ما عملوا نحن هذا رئيسنا وهذا شرفنا وهذا ابن المرحوم حافظ الأسد. حافظ الأسد الله وكيلك رب أصبع. ما راح يكون ابنه لا جزار ولا بيقتل بالأطفال ولا بيقتل بالنساء ولا شيء. هني غلطوا وهني حيتحملوا المسؤولية. بشار الأسد للأبد إن شاء من شاء وإن أبى من أبى.
As we were talking, a woman who had grievances with some of Assad's security personnel approached.
مين هو اللي خد الإغراض؟
واحد اسمه من الأمن اسمه حيدر. بدي استريح. راحوا كل الأغراض تيسر تمام. أنا لازم تاخذوني حقي أنا مواطنة سورية.
واحد شك علي بقولوا بمصلى.
As soon as she appeared, government representatives, some of whom we didn't even realize were watching, blocked us from talking to her. One security official, whose voice we disguised to protect him from the Syrian government, told us what was happening here. Why did you stop us from filming?
So, in terms of going to the exhibit, you do the math.
Why?
Have you read 1984?
I've read 1984. Are you saying this is 1984? This is Big Brother?
And I'm Mr. Smith.
This reference to 1984 rings true. The Assad family has ruled Syria as an Orwellian police state for over 4 decades and has only increased its repression during the current conflict. It imprisons political opponents, detains journalists, and consistently makes enemies of the state disappear. Unsurprisingly, throughout our time in Assad-controlled Syria, no one would go on record to openly criticize the government. In the Western media, all we hear is a lot of atrocities that Assad has gone through, and 400,000 people have been killed, millions of people displaced across the country. Do you think that Assad has any responsibility in that?
None of us is an angel. Everybody makes mistakes, but in some, some threshold, it's acceptable. Okay, and I think he didn't step out of that threshold.
Like any good dictatorship, part of how Assad controls this narrative is by controlling the media. Hello. Good morning. I'm here at Summer TV, which is a very widely watched national TV channel. I know that the presenters here are keen to ask me some questions, hoping to get the chance to throw them a couple of questions too.
Good morning, Isabel, and you are welcome to Syria.
Thank you.
Good morning,
Thanks for
Isabel,
having me.
and welcome to our beloved Syria.
Thanks.
When you came to Syria, you had ideas to put in your movie. What was your main goals?
The main thing is to come in from the government perspective and to see what you guys see and to see how you guys live. And one thing I was surprised about is the number of posters and the level of supposed loyalty here that President Assad has. I don't know what you guys think about that as well.
اوكي إيزابيل، هل وجدتي صعوبات خلال تنقلك بالمدن السورية أو خلال يمكن ذهابك لمناطق معينة بسوريا لحتى تصوري فيها؟
And to be honest, we have a government minder with us the whole time. We have a lot of people ensuring that there's a lot of permissions that we need to get through every single layer. And so getting to certain places and talking to certain people is a real issue. I don't know if that's partly because of the restrictions that are in place for media. Maybe you guys could tell me about that.
كيف وجدتي إيزابيل تفاعل الناس، طبيعة الحياة بسوريا؟
Are you able to answer any of my questions?
Yeah, for sure. رح نكمل مع إيزابيل، لكن رح نكمل معك ونعرف الرسالة اللي أنت حابة تحمليها من خلال الفيلم الوثائقي اللي عم بتصوريه بسوريا.
While the hosts avoided answering any of my questions on air, one of them did agree to speak with me candidly off air. You have millions of viewers watch both your morning show and your evening show. Yeah. Do you think the government watches it?
Absolutely, yes. Absolutely, yes.
Do you think they like it?
I don't talk to any one of them, but I think if they didn't approve, they will tell us some way or some another way.
The people in the West, they see millions of refugees seeking asylum, and they see people fleeing a repressive regime where they feel like they have no option but to leave. And so you can understand why international media and the international community would feel like President Assad isn't the person that he is perhaps portraying himself to be within the country.
Why do you think he is not the proper person? Are you living with us? Are you facing the difficulties that we are facing? How can you have the right to decide our needs? Let's not forget what happened in Iraq, just like what happened in Afghanistan, what happened in too many areas in the world. That doesn't give them the right to force us to change, which is called Arabian Spring, and it's not just like spring at all.
From talking with him, it was apparent that the government uses the media to portray a glossier side of Syria, which might explain why they were also eager to bring us to the coastal town of Latakia. Believe it or not, we are actually in Syria. So, this is Syria. This is not what I was expecting from Syria.
This is Syria, having fun with my family, taking care of my country, supporting my army, because I believe in them.
Is there something a little bit strange about having a holiday here and having fun and everyone enjoying themselves when there's a war going on?
It shows that whatever happens here, we're gonna survive. The barbarians tried to destroy Syria, but we're living. Whatever happens, we're gonna rebuild it, and Syria will be strong again.
Latakia is crucial to that strength. Despite being a hot tourist pick for Syrian elites, it's also home to Russian fighter jets, which are playing a defining role in securing victory for Assad. Is it a little bit strange at all that all these people are here on the Mediterranean, and at the same time we've got Russian fighter jets flying over us, and there's fighting going on around the rest of the country?
غريب من الناحية أي ناحية غريب. ليس غريب في ذلك. لم أشعر يوماً بأنه سيكون خطر على هذه البلد.
While the government may be on the cusp of rewriting history, it's impossible to whitewash the impact of Assad's brutal crackdowns across the country. We didn't have to travel far from the capital to see total devastation in the suburb of Daraya. We're literally just a kilometre or so outside of the city centre of Damascus. We're here in the suburb of Daraya town, which just a few years ago had about 80,000 residents here. Now, as you can see, it's been completely bombed to smithereens. This is actually one of the hotspots of the revolution, and the government has clamped down pretty harshly on them ever since. See bits and pieces of what remains of life here. It's pretty insane to think that there were 80,000 people or so living here not so long ago, and now it's just a ghost town. The residents of Daraya didn't just disappear. With the town under siege, they were surrounded and starved out. The regime allowed us to meet with a select group of soldiers. How come there are no men here?
نحن هون عملنا مثل الشباب. ما في فرق بيناتنا بين الشاب والبنت، كلنا ايد وحدة.
Who are you looking out for?
مجموعة إرهابية مسلحة قدامي، عم راقبها. هدول داعش والنصرة.
There's reports, at least in the Western media, that there's several thousand people over there who are starving and unable to get aid. Is that true?
هلا هذا الحكي مزبوط، بس هنن يلي رادوا هذا الشيء، هنن اللي طالبوا بهذا الشيء، هن اللي جابوا، يعني هن اللي قاتلوا، هن اللي طلعوا معارضات، هن اللي طلعوا بالأزمة يعني بهالشيء اللي عم بيصير فيهم حالياً.
But as soon as she responded, a male commander overseeing us off camera was quick to interrupt and reassert the government's official stance.
احنا ما عم نشوف حدا، نشوف مقاتلين عم نتعامل مع مقاتلين، مقاتل لمقاتل. احنا
So you guys haven't killed any civilians in this town?
مجرمون، يعني في قدامنا عناصر مقاتله فقط لا غير، ما في قدامنا حدا مدني، احنا عم نستهدف مدنيين.
These were the only government fighters we were permitted to talk to, and we weren't allowed to speak to them in private. What made you come here?
اللي خلانا نجي لهون انه نحن صار في ازمه عنا، صار في ناس عم تحارب ضدنا، ناس بدها تخرب الامان عنا، اجينا لندافع عن وطننا.
That sounded scared. That sounded really, really close. Do you get scared?
مش متعودين عليه، اكيد ما حنخاف منه.
1 2 3
بالروح بالدم نفديك سوريا، بالروح بالدم نفديك سوريا.
After our photo op, a city bus came to pick up the fighters. Something very bizarre about that. These guys have just got ferried off on their bus. Can't help but feel that they might have been here for us. Much like Aleppo, in the time since we visited Daraya, what remains of the town has fallen to Assad. And the opposition, we were told were terrorists and IS fighters, were revealed to be predominantly civilians, including many women and children. With more and more territories suffering a similar fate, we spoke to one of the Assad regime's leading politicians, Faraz Shahabi, about the future of Syria. The US has said that Assad is the root of all evil. Whether or not you agree with that, the US has been against Assad, the EU has been against Assad. Various international communities have been outspoken in their opposition to Assad. How is he still in power? It seems like that is against all odds.
Yeah, exactly. This is the question that you have to ask all these hypocrites, the politician hypocrites in the West. How can a guy that you put all the NATO brain and power and intelligence against him, and you could not do it after 5 years? What does that tell you? Is he a Superman? Is he really a guy with superpowers? No. The overwhelming majority of the Syrian people is with him.
And why are they with him?
Because they don't want their country to go down the drain, to be a failed state, to be a form of Afghanistan.
So do you think that Assad symbolizes security and safety for the average, everyday civilian?
Yes, and symbolizes, more importantly, secularism. We are a secular state against fundamentalism, against Islamic jihadists, against terrorism. Why aren't you supporting us? Why are you siding with the side that is known to be jihadist and beards to the ground? Why are you siding with these guys?
It seems like anyone who is classified as the opposition in Syria is also classified as a terrorist.
Totally wrong.
When the first protests started to take place in 2011, they were pretty peaceful, democratic protests, and the government reacted by a pretty harsh crackdown, which arguably left these opposition groups with not much choice but to bear arms themselves. Are they supposed to lie down and take it while thousands of protesters are locked up or detained or killed?
No one was getting killed. See, our report is different than your report.
It's pretty evident, yes.
Yes. What we've seen on the ground is different than what we hear on the Western media.
So are you saying that the government had nothing to do with attacks on innocent civilians?
I'm positive. But they want to demonize us. Fine. This is the result.
Another result is that Syria's 5 largest cities, which make up the backbone of the country, are all now officially in Assad's hands. And if you want to see what the future looks like, look no further than Homs. We're in the city of Homs, which is known as the capital of the revolution. The government actually took back complete control of the city. In order to do so, it's left the city in a completely dire state. I mean, it looks like some horrific film set. Incredibly, amongst all this rubble, there are some families who are just starting to move back into the neighborhood. Are you nervous about rebuilding this place and moving back in when there's still a war going on?
والله إن شاء الله ما بصير شيء. إن شاء الله إنه ما بصير شيء.
Does the government have any responsibility for the damage that's been caused here?
لا ما بقول الحكومة.
It seems like this will be the legacy of the revolution against Assad. Not just the destruction of entire cities, but the total acquiescence of the surviving population. Does anyone in this town hold any blame towards the government?
لا هلا نحن بهالمنطقتنا لا هلا ليش نحن كنا عايشين قبل الأزمة وكانت سيادة الرئيس موجود والنظام موجود.
Even amongst the apocalyptic scenes of devastation, Homs had an eerie sense of an echo chamber. Whatever way we asked, we got nothing short of devout regime loyalty. Do you blame the government at all? Because they were responsible for many of the attacks that took place in Homs.
No. Actually, Hukumi very good. Hukumi.